This is one of the most important videos I will ever do because it tells you how cooperative systems, parallel systems, alternative economies actually grow and expand over time. For those of you who don't know, a worker business in the Basque region of Spain in the 1950s grew into a network of worker-owned cooperatives that built their own bank, their own education system, their own welfare system. It's one of the most developed cooperative ecosystems in the world. And it looks like it's been planned from the beginning, but it wasn't. They didn't have any support from outside investors. They reinvested their profits back into the system and into the surrounding region. It looks like a deliberate attempt to recreate a full economic system from the ground up. I almost made that assumption myself. It looks completely coordinated. They have welfare, they have education, they have finance, they have industry. It looks like a parallel system, but that's not how it started. Pressure kept forcing the next layer of infrastructure, and this pattern shows up repeatedly. So when cooperatives were unable to get credit from external sources, they created their own bank, Caja Laboral, which didn't just lend money, but also helped create and guide new enterprises. When members of cooperatives were excluded from Spain's social security system, workers were left without a safety net, so they had to create Lagunaro, their own welfare system. These two situations are not isolated. They both follow the same logic. The dependency on the system created risk for those involved. That risk became a constraint, and that constraint led to a structural response. Over time, they became less dependent on external systems and started building their own. Now, there's two ways that these systems respond to pressure. It can lead to the creation of new institutions and new infrastructure, or it can test what structure already exists. In 2013, Fajo Electrodomésticos collapsed. It's a big part of Mondragon's network, and it affected thousands of people, many of which were retrained and relocated into other cooperatives in the network, some of which were retired. This wasn't a new mechanism. Workers had already been transferred across cooperatives before in the past, and sharing financial burden was not alien to these cooperatives, but it had never been done at this scale before. So this leads to two dynamics. Pressure can create new infrastructure, or it can test whether existing infrastructure is strong enough. Now, as Mondragon grew and expanded, it didn't remove pressure. In the 1970s, you had global oil disruptions which increased prices. You had, in the 1980s, Spain opening up to European competition and removing local protections for local industry. You had, in 2008, the global financial crisis, which made credit harder to access across industries. All of these crises leave individuals and individual firms vulnerable. So the logical response for these systems is to tighten coordination, more shared financial support, more workers moved between co-ops, tighter ways of working together. Each time they responded in a similar way. As pressure increased, they worked together more closely. What this pattern actually shows is very interesting, because when I've talked about these alternative systems in the past, sometimes you get comments from people who say, well, what happens when you get too big? Won't it get blocked, or won't it get sabotaged? The truth is, when you look at the Mondragon case, that's not quite what happens. They didn't scale and expand and then face pressure. They expanded through pressure. That doesn't mean that pressure is helpful. It just means the plan wasn't fixed in advance. The direction was decided by what they needed to solve next. The message here isn't that pressure on its own creates systems like this. Before the first co-op was created in Mondragon, they created a technical school which taught students technical skills as well as discipline, responsibility, and how to work together collectively. so that when pressure hit later, they were already well prepared to cooperate and they weren't reacting as isolated individuals. This is something I've been exploring more deeply through conversations and small group discussions, and I'll be sharing more about that soon. But it's important to remember that Mondragon wasn't created through some grand vision or blueprint in advance. It was created gradually by creating solutions to problems as they occurred. It expanded because each serious constraint forced them to build something new or strengthen what was already there. And it worked because they already knew how to cooperate with each other. Not pressure alone, not ideology alone, but a system that recognizes its limits and already has enough internal cohesion to respond to it.